Okay. All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another Monday morning tech chat on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka SomeGadgetGuy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast. And the QA, of course, stands for question and answer, as we like to have a more interactive conversation about the tech topics that are all hitting the news feeds. And it's also why I like to host my podcast on a Monday. We get the week. Hopefully you had a fantastic recovery from your New Year's celebrations, whatever they might have been. Last week we did a very casual pajama podcast, just chatting through the last year of smartphone tech and the last decade of smartphone tech, what we'd hope to see in 2020. And of course, that leads us right into a lot of the topics we're going to be covering this week, as the Consumer Electronics Show 2020 is happening in Las Vegas. The entire event kicking off literally today. If you were following us on the Discord or just kind of poking around on Twitter, you probably saw that we were watching the LG keynote for CES 2020, where a lot of talk was had about 8K and AI and cool connected appliances. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. So we've got quite a bit to talk about here, and I'm going to get back into our more normal format. I still have a little bit of a residual cough, so apologies, especially for those of you folks who listen to the audio feed after the fact. You're still going to hear a bit of that, but I have more voice than I've had in weeks, so I'm excited to see how far I can push it. We do have a lot to talk about. I'm going to whittle back our news segment because we want to chat some of the early announcements from CES. There are already a whole slate of press releases and gadgets. I have a fun little reveal about some Intel kit that we can talk about, and then also some of the other lifestyle technologies that are going to be coming out of CES. So I want to jump in. I want to start talking. We're going to get housekeeping out of the way, and housekeeping is going to be relatively light. Anyone got to know? Gary the fireman saying 12 minutes on housekeeping. I would not take those odds, Gary, because I don't have a lot to talk about. I'm still getting back into the swing of things here. So let's get this out of the way here. I'm going to jump into a screen share. And for dang it, that little dry cough. It's like this annoying little tickle in the back of my throat. So I've been trying to finish up a bunch of projects that, because of the voice and some, I wanted to take some time off and spend it with family over the holidays too. One of the major videos that I really wanted to have done in December, but was a very challenging video to put together, and I not jumping on the iPhone review bandwagon immediately at launch. I kind of wanted to slow play that. I had other things that I needed to finish up, and now coming into doing a little cross-channel collaboration with Ricky, the YouTube tech guy. This was a lot of work to put into sort of a comparison video. I don't do a lot of comparison videos because I feel they routinely, if you do a lot of them, they routinely descend into, I'm reading off the spec sheet for one phone and I'm reading off the spec sheet for another phone, and this phone has more megapixels and giggle flips, so it's the winner. And it was a major sort of bone of contention. We would have these internal pitch meetings and debates at Pocket Now, where, what type of content should we be putting out there? Are we really fulfilling like commentary with this kind of stuff? I mean, it's really difficult to honestly use two devices, dig deep into those two devices, and offer up some genuine criticism and comparison. It's a very difficult challenge. So I wanted to live up to that standard, and so putting the iPhone through Apple's marketing claims took a lot longer than I was expecting it to take. So Apple makes big claims about the iPhone for video production, for content creation, and it's if you're following a YouTuber and they go out on their front porch and they shoot like 2 samples, and then they shoot 2 samples from a Galaxy and they say, oh, well, see, the iPhone's better. You're not really getting any kind of informed commentary there. That's not what it's like to live with this phone. So I put together a 22-minute video, as you can see here. The iPhone 11 Pro Max versus LG V50, what exactly is a pro phone video? The reason why this video is 22 minutes long, first of all, I had to have some time for snarky jokes about the iPhone storage, because a pro phone apparently only needs 64 gigs of storage to put all of those super huge premium content creation apps and to shoot 4K video on. That actually only takes up about a minute and a half of the video. But the entire chain of content creation really needs to be examined. So we go from shooting content, because obviously that's the first thing that you're going to want to look at, the video stabilization, the video quality, et cetera, et cetera. But then you need to spend a little time comparing different apps. So LG's camera app versus the Apple camera app versus Filmic Pro, spending more on a camera app to get these pro features that the phone supposedly is capable of. Then that's just the beginning of content creation. You've got to look at everything: audio capture, file management, what apps you're using for editing, how fast those apps can render, putting every part of the project together. So this isn't I shot 5 samples of video in here, I can put them side by side in a 1080p video to show you how good the 4K quality is. This was a top to bottom, soup to nuts. What can you do on a phone, and can we push those phones to their limits? It takes a lot to kind of examine the differences in workflow. There's a lot of philosophy that goes into how you get something done when you want to make something, especially if you're like trying to use a tool with some obvious compromises. A smartphone definitely has some compromises as a computing platform, but it's like I said, it's heady. 22 minutes. You can check it out yourselves. SomeGadgetGuy.com. For all of the show notes and the links and everything that we're going to be talking about. But this one took me a long time to put together. I'm really proud of how it came together. It's a lot of commentary on a company that makes the boldest claims in marketing, and how those marketing claims, often the product doesn't really live up to the boasts from that manufacturer. So let me get this out of the way here. And the other bit of housekeeping, like I said, CES kicking off. I did a little pre-show video with Newegg, which you can also check on the Newegg YouTube channel. This Newegg Studios. And we went down just some general predictions for what we'll see at CES 2020. And already, I'm kind of a little bit wrong. So it's going to be a fun video to check out. Like, how off the mark was I with my predictions for what we'll see at CES 2020? And you can catch that now. It's live. It's public. I'm already getting some fun comments, especially the conversation surrounding things like 8K. 8K TVs, manufacturers are making a lot of noise about TVs. CES is becoming one of those shows to talk about TVs. So we see the big push at the beginning of the year, and then the gimmicks kind of fall apart by the end of the year. It took a couple years. It took about 2 years of 3D tech at CES before consumers finally just said, we don't care about 3D. I wonder how the resolution war is going to fight, because I don't think many consumers really care about resolution. I think they shop a nice TV. If that's an expensive TV from a known brand, it must be a nice TV, and then they get on with it. You know, when most TVs transition over into 4K, they get a 4K TV. I don't think it's a motivating purchasing decision to look at the resolution. But we also talk about 5G and then some of the other product categories. Wearables and health tech is also going to be very prominent at the show. We've got some kit to talk about that. So, yeah, you can check it out. Newegg Studios YouTube channel. Me in a red hat, probably wrong, predicting what won't be at CES. So that's pretty good. So let's geek. I actually disagree a little bit, but we're going to talk about that in the second half of this podcast. CES has become a clearinghouse for vaporware. Actually, I think the last 2 years at CES have been very good shows, but they've been very broad, and there isn't a defining this is what the show is about for CES. MWC, mobile. IFA is about appliances and home technologies. Computex, well, what new motherboards are going to be coming out for the year? CES doesn't have that defining element anymore, and it's starting to become the broad show. So without one big linchpin, this is the big winner of CES exciting topic, it's difficult to get a sense of everything that gets shown and all of the little upstarts and like the innovation village where tiny little companies can show off things in these little like mall kiosk booths. There's a lot of really cool stuff that goes up at CES, but it's so scattered now. It's hard to get a good vibe on. I don't know. Like last year, I was out at CES for Newegg, and on the ground, we were having these amazing conversations about all the stuff we were seeing. It was so difficult to put together any kind of video coverage like, oh, what are the top 5 things we saw at CES? And you're like, either we go gimmicks like, hey, there's a machine that folds your laundry for you, or we just parrot the same top 5 press releases that everyone else is covering. And that's not really what the show was like. So I've got some high hopes for some of the under-the-radar content, some of the under-the-radar pitches, the smaller announcements, the more aggressive, proactive ones. So 9 minutes, housekeeping is over. Ba-bam! If anyone put their pitch on 9 minutes for housekeeping, then you totally won this week's pool. There is no prize, but my sincere thumbs up and earnest head nod in your general direction with eye contact. There you go. Okay. So, like I said, a more traditional show this week. We obviously are going to kick off with some news, a little tech politics, go through our pitch for the Reddits, and then move on into some of the early CES announcements, the early PR releases. We just finished watching that LG keynote, AI, 8K, appliances. They briefly showed an LG G8X on screen to talk about OLED panel manufacturing. I'm not sure that's gonna be the killer, exciting thing that people take away from this year's show, but LG at least got to kick off the keynote. So I want to start, if there ever is news about net neutrality, my favorite tech politics topic to talk about. I'm actually amazed I just got that sentence out of my mouth on the first try. Let's jump in. So this is news coming out of New York. One of the headline title stories that we're going to be talking about for this week's show. Governor Cuomo proposes new protections for net neutrality. This is coming by way of cranesnewyork.com, their tech sector. And I can't find, this is off of an AP feed, but I can't see who actually wrote up the article. So I can't credit them. But anyway, from the article, Governor Cuomo wants New York to prevent internet providers from favoring some services over others. And he proposed Thursday what he called the strongest state-level measure to protect what's known as net neutrality. Let's get this down over here. Unveiled as part of the Democratic governor's State of the State agenda for next year, the plan comes as some states have sought to make up for the Federal Communication Commission's 2017 decision to repeal net neutrality rules that they had previously approved in 2015. Quote, a free and open internet is one of the great equalizers, allowing every person the same access to information and helping protect freedom of speech, Cuomo said in a statement. He said he was proposing legislation so big corporations can't control what information we access or stymie smaller competitors. Now, this is, get this out of the way here. So, always touching back in on this because if you're for or against net neutrality, we have a fight that's actually starting to step on the types of debates we have over federalism, the separation between federal powers and states' rights. And this is, again, I feel like this is precisely why the FCC is not only completely wrong, but it's bad for business. It is incredibly bad for businesses when there is not a federal standard on something like net neutrality. The open internet order was relatively weak. Verizon sued the federal government. Tom Wheeler, at the head of the FCC, made much stronger plays for net neutrality. That got fought, but it was eventually approved in 2015 under the Obama administration. And now that it's getting gutted, it was removed in 2017. Now every business that has some kind of play to do work with internet connectivity is going to have to go state by state with individual regulatory agencies and individual state-based regulations. So eventually, you're going to look at what state is the most punitive and write all of your business plans to that one state's architecture if you want to have nationwide regulatory appeasement. If you want to be able to do business across all 50 states, you're probably going to have to play ball by New York and California's rules. So if you're in a flyover state, if you're in the middle of the country and you want your opinion to matter on what this regulation should look like, you are now irrelevant. It's us on the coasts. We win again. Or we could have had a very base level, the bare minimum level of regulatory protections as enacted by the criminally underfunded agency at the FCC. So those regulations would have been mostly toothless under a conservative administration, but they got rid of them, so now it's a states' rights fight, and it's going to be way more complicated and way more expensive for businesses to figure out all this stuff. But I'm kind of fine with it because this is what EdgitPie kind of wanted, I guess, by getting rid of minimal net neutrality protections at the top. Gary the Fireman, give me your free and open internet. Give me your unwashed masses yearning for 3G coverage. So good. So good. So I'll be curious to see. We're going through, I think we're about wrapping up there's still a number of legal fights. The FCC is suing California over our net neutrality legislation, which is always the funny bit of the FCC claims they can't regulate the internet, but then they're suing individual states to prevent them from having any kind of consumer protection or regulatory body involved with online traffic. So I'll be curious to see how New York's set of guidelines and regulations differ from California's. If they manage to kick it up a notch even over where we are in California, that could be pretty brutal. It could be interesting to see how that is actually played out with the larger ISPs. Because one of the things that we're just now starting to get a handle on and get a grip on here in California is our new privacy law, which went into effect on January 1st. This coming by way of CBC Radio. Funnily enough, I felt like this was one of the better articles written about this law coming out of Canada to talk about CA. Not CA is in Canada, but CA is in California. New California privacy law lets people find out exactly what companies know about them. Again, written up by CBC Radio, but I don't have a I've got a story transcript, but I don't have a byline on who actually authored or recorded this. But from the article, California's new privacy law is like a Freedom of Information Act for private companies, says the former CIA analyst who co-authored it. Under the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA, which came into effect on January 1st, consumers can demand companies disclose what data has been collected on them, request that companies delete their data, and stop businesses from selling their data to third parties. The heart of the CCPA is this right to know. Mary Stone Ross, a CIA analyst turned privacy advocate, told As It Happens guest host Helen Mann. So I can go to a business and say, what do you know about me or my device or my children? And they have to tell me. And this represents the most comprehensive privacy legislation in the United States. So I feel like this is also going to be another state-by-state arms race in legislation. California, one of the first 5 states to enact net neutrality regulations. Now, again, one of the first to enact a state-specific consumer privacy bill. New York, likely going to jump on that too. So we're going to see escalating ranges of regulatory agency, regulatory oversight, and consumer protections. Again, I feel like we could have headed all of this off if we had let the FCC enact basic low-level protections at the federal level, and then these companies would have had guidelines to operate under back in 2015, and then whether or not that agency was properly funded to do its job, if you're liberal or conservative, I feel like this would have been better for everybody if we didn't have Ajit Pai at the head of the FCC. So it's gross. Aw, who has strep? Kyle Ruggles, you have strep throat? Aw, buddy. So after having come off of like the worst laryngitis I've ever had in my entire life, everyone press F for Kyle Ruggles' throat, and that hopefully he gets better. It's a good thing he's a photographer, so he doesn't really need his voice. Not like, podcast host or anything like that. From Soulless Geek, this is going to be difficult for Google. There are going to be a ton of people who don't understand their business model and demand Google delete everything. People don't do it now because they just don't really know how to do it themselves. I think it's definitely going to tag Google hard. I'm expecting it to tag Facebook hard. I think one of the most visible examples of big data as a profit-generating business would be Facebook. Now, the company I think is probably going to be able to skate by. The consumer opinion on doing business with Amazon still doesn't seem to concern many consumers that I talk to. Excuse me. So even though they keep a database on their customers and the people who do business with their customers, unlike any other market force on the planet, I think they'll probably be able to squeak by. Like, not a lot of people are going to be demanding to know what their Amazon profile looks like. But I completely agree. Like, Google is going to get hit with this. They've already started to roll out tools like you can delete your Google Maps tracking data. But Facebook, I think, is actually going to be the most obnoxious pushback. The company I'm curious to see if they face any significant ramifications from this will be Microsoft. Again, I think there's a consumer perception that Microsoft is that box of software you get every couple of years to install a new operating system on your laptop so it can perform slower. I don't think the current server side, everything is an online service version of Microsoft, has tapped through the consumer consciousness yet. And so from everything that they do, from the business and corporate side, from Microsoft Office to OneDrive to Skype, if people are still using Skype, all the way down to Xbox and the amount of online data and traffic that they maintain on every single one of their consumers. I wonder if people are going to start examining their relationship with Microsoft products in the same way that I'm sure the general perception of Facebook is already, well, they dig into everything I do, and Facebook is pervasive, and Facebook is bad for privacy. I wonder if they'll start to critically examine their relationship with Microsoft too. So get this out of the way here. Excuse me. Soulless Geek, they haven't. I don't even think about them that way unless I make a conscious effort. I know my muggles don't. Aww. And Code Exploit, I've already moved over to Linux. I'm spending time with some alternative computing. I recently did a review on a Chromebook, and one of my favorite features of using a Chromebook was being able to kind of get back into Linux, where I haven't seriously given Linux a spin for a while. And for Matt Tyler, even Sony stopped allowing you to share on Facebook from the PS4. Gary the Fireman, I see so many people being interviewed on TV over Skype, and it's always a dumpster fire. I mean, the reason for that, though, is Skype is the worst except for everything else. When we talked about this a little last week, I think, we were trying to set up video calls around the family. And you're like, Duo can do multiple person video calls, except it couldn't. And my mom and my sister and my brother, we couldn't get a video call on Duo going. There aren't a lot of iOS devices in our household, so like FaceTime was out of the question. It was all a mess, and we eventually ended up just going, just Skype. We'll just Skype it, and then we got this video feed up and running, and we had this multiple person call. I'm going to be doing All About Android tomorrow. I'm going to be joining them to talk about CES, and they host their show on Skype. I mean, again, it's so silly, but for as much for as much sort of Skype shruggery, like Skype hate out there, it still is like the common denominator. Like, we tried this thing which is supposed to work better, it didn't work. I don't know, just go to Skype. It's like the default. It's like the fallback position. From Legit Kills XD, I hope we get some talk for PS5 from AMD or Sony. And from Solus Geek, how invasive is Sony as far as personal data? They're not as heavy hitting on the web services, so I don't think they're as manipulative. I think that's the big concern. The reason why we want to know what these buckets of data look like, this influences our behavior based on what they do with this data. And then they sell that data off, and then other companies get to do things with our data. It becomes a little less precious if that company is sitting on a trove of user data, but they aren't selling it or manipulating user behavior off of that data. So I've never had any significant red flags over PlayStation on how they monitor your activities. So I'd be curious to see if there is maybe a security issue or if there is a user manipulation issue when it comes to PlayStation. From Sam, Skype for Business is what we use at work, and it surprisingly works well. And yeah, there's a huge divide. This is from Solus Geek. A huge divide between Skype Business and Skype Personal. Kyle Ruggles is going to be tuning into All About Android. I like the crew at AAA. All About Android is still one of my favorite tech podcasts. Goran Petrovic, the truth is with Ricky Gervais. I was actually thinking about trying to add it to this week's show where Ricky Gervais called out Tim Cook during the Golden Globes to talk about Apple sweatshop labor in China. But there's just something like, I was talking to my wife about this last night. We kind of had it, our news feeds. We both come out of entertainment. I used to work for a talent agency, and then I used to do casting. My wife works for a video game publisher and works in talent for that video game publisher. That the award shows used to be like, our Super Bowls. But when it comes to something like, ooh, how racy and outlandish, Ricky Gervais is really going to stick it to those Hollywood fat cats, it still has this kind of distasteful, it doesn't matter what Ricky Gervais says. It's multi-billion-dollar corporation hosting this $1 million award show with famous rich people in Hollywood, listening to a famous rich person insult them roast style, and then everyone still just kind of goes on with whatever they're doing. So it's satisfying in sort of a sick thrill in the moment, but it's not like, it's not like this is some great truth telling or anything. It's just another roast. And roasts are funny, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's, Ricky Gervais speaking truth to power. Like, he is the power. He is that. He's an actor, director, and producer in Hollywood. Like, he's a part of this machine. You can call out Apple, but I'm pretty sure Ricky Gervais is using an iPhone. So again, I thought it would be kind of a fun thing to mix in, but it ultimately is a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. So yeah. Excuse me. I mean, it's funny. Again, a lot of people saying the clip is hilarious. The clip is hilarious. It is funny, but again, it's like there's a component of it just like where it's spectacle, and it gets headlines, but it doesn't really mean much. Like, oh, Ricky Gervais said such racy things. But he's still going to be the host again next year. And he makes the same joke over, I can't believe I'm still hosting the Golden Globes. I bet this is the last year they're going to let me do it. So it's still going to happen. Yeah. Ooh, that's a little dark, snoozy J Mall. And Soulless Geek, he's got his device identifier turned off because he's probably on an iPhone. I don't know. Someone correct me if they've seen evidence to the contrary, but Ricky Gervais does not strike me as being a Samsung guy. All right, last bit of news. How exciting is this? I made it through tech politics news much more efficiently than I think I ever have in 2019. One last big story, something that we loosely kind of check out. We've mentioned it on the podcast before. Companies that are technically based in the United States getting to play with regional shenanigans to do things like avoid paying taxes. So this is a story by way of The Guardian. Again, several other news outlets covered it. I tried to find a better Reuters or AP feed. But Google says it will no longer use double Irish Dutch sandwich tax loophole, which sounds delicious, but is actually really a little bit scummy. And again, literally like every single... Oh, Edward Helmore. Okay. Whew. I was going to say, this is written up by Edward Helmore. I was worried that like maybe I went 3 for 3 on finding news stories where there was no byline. But anyway, from the article... international tax authorities were welcoming in the new year after Google's parent company Alphabet announced it will no longer use a notorious tax loophole known as the double Irish Dutch sandwich. Let me see. We can. I want to find, because they're talking. Google is simplifying their tax arrangements. This is coming on the heels of the Trump administration reducing the tax burden on corporate tax for money that was for revenue outside the United States, profits outside the United States. But they had a description of, as part of the article, it is estimated that by the end of 2017, some of America's most profitable companies, including Apple, the largest by market capitalization, had sequestered more than $1 trillion offshore using the double Irish to park billions in ghost companies. Companies including Google, Cisco, Pfizer, Merck, Coca-Cola, and Facebook all avoided a 35% U.S. corporate tax rate, which has now been cut down by Donald Trump. They had a description of this here in the article, and I'm not seeing it now. But essentially, here it goes. Under the double Irish, companies shift taxable income from an operating company in Ireland to another Irish registered firm in an offshore tax haven. Dutch tax law allows untaxed profits to be moved to a tax haven without incurring a withholding tax. So a Netherlands-based company is used in the middle of this sandwich. And because we've made it completely legal to operate in this fashion, it allowed, like Tim Cook went before Congress and said, hey, we pay every tax dollar that we owe. But they still had hundreds of billions of dollars offshore, and they would. This is the funniest thing I think is they would take out loans to satisfy their shareholder commitments instead of trying to move any of the cash that was in the offshore accounts. So now the Trump administration has cut from 35%. I think we would all agree that the corporate tax rate for bringing money into the United States was too high. But suddenly there was this ability for Apple to move $250 billion as soon as that tax burden was lifted. So we're playing fast and loose with the sort of definition of what tax law is. So they go to Ireland. They're an American company, but they've got Irish headquarters. And they're able to move these monies around. It benefits the Irish economy somehow. And then they're able to even hide funds from the EU. Obviously, this was going to change at some point. But now we'll get to see just how much money has been sort of moved around creatively. And whether or not it actually does come back to the regions where these companies do business. Code exploit. It's like the situation where a bunch of millionaires come with their private jets to a meeting to discuss climate change. which those meetings have not been going very well, and lots of travel on private jets, I'm sure. Soulless Geek, it's all a dog and pony show. Friend and I were talking about how him and others, talking about Ricky Gervais, how him and others have been in Hollywood for years. They're part of the problem because they kept their mouths shut. Sam Miles, Double Dutch, the only way to jump rope and to jump your tax burden. Matt Tyler, wait, a multi-billion-pound company in tax news? Well, I never. And Kyle Ruggles, corruption is legal. Again, a lot of these companies get to kind of influence or write how this stuff goes down. So Sam's point is well taken. It's scummy, but it's not illegal. Again, I wish I had the creative accounting acumen to be able to move my money around in a way where the IRS would just go, yeah, that's totally cool. I don't think you get to do that until you've got a couple million socked away where the IRS can't see it. And then they won't go after you. The IRS won't go after the rich because they'll put up a fight. But if you're off by 50 cents on your tax return, then they'll come after you if you're sort of middle class. You can go to them and you're like, so I got to pay these taxes. And they're like, yeah. And you're like, well, how much do I owe? And they're like, oh, you figure that out. And then they're like, oh, so you don't know how much I owe? And then they go, oh, no, we know exactly how much you owe. And then you're like, but you can't tell me. And they're like, oh, no, that's not up to us. But what if I get it wrong? They say you go to jail. It's a beautiful one-act play where everybody loses. From Notakun61, Google, not evil, just scummy. That's their new slogan. I love it. I love it. So, let me get this out of the way here. That was news. Thank you for joining me on a tech and politics rant. Like we start off every podcast. Anytime we're gonna see some of these stories pop up, I feel we need to keep on this pulse, on this conversation, especially net neutrality. But then also, how do the businesses we do business with manage their resources? It's that kind of news over the next couple years. I feel will help us determine, are these the companies we want to be doing business with, and are there any alternatives for us to shop? Again, when we have competition and when we have some disclosure and some education on business practices, that helps guide us in making a decision on whether or not we want to continue doing business with those companies. So I'm going to keep talking about it. I got a lot of pushback a couple weeks back talking about politics as if somehow being a tech enthusiast makes us above politics, and obviously I disagree. From Sam. Oh, wow. Sorry. From Sam, evil light. It's the new way, phones and tax scams. Goran Petrovic, Google, not evil, just pro. Oh, pro. That label used to mean something on products. Still kind of does. You can look at a Mac Pro. That looks like, a pretty substantial, beefy machine that a professional might want to use. It's obviously expensive. You got that Apple tax going on, but it's a far more capable machine and feels a lot like the Apple I used to love back in the G5, the Power Mac days, where, you spent a lot on that machine, but it felt like you were getting something above and beyond. I can't say the same when it comes to a phone, a pro phone. I had similar sort of, philosophical issues with the OnePlus 7 Pro, in that you're talking about professional capabilities and you're talking about smartphones. But again, the OnePlus 7 Pro is a phone that's almost half the price of a similarly spec'd out iPhone. Have a harder time getting real lit up about a $700 Pro phone as opposed to like a $1,300 Pro phone. So that's kind of gross. All right, Kyle Ruggles, Evil Core. I need to watch Mr. Robot. I'm so far behind all my shows. We just finished Witcher. I just finished Expanse. We caught Doctor Who. Excuse me. I'm just like piece by piece. I'm getting there. There's just so much to watch and so little time to watch it all. And Kyle Ruggles, the ROG Phone 2 is a pro phone IMO. And again, it's one of the things I love about gaming hardware. Look at a pro laptop, a workstation grade laptop, and then look at a really nicely built gaming laptop. Dag, yo, those machines are going to be pretty similar, especially in terms of capability. So when I was doing a lot of video work on the go, especially just as I was starting to get into Pocket now, having a gaming laptop was huge. Like looking at what Asus did with the ROG phone this year, or in 2019, some pretty good arguments for calling that a pro phone. Having 2 USB ports and a headphone jack, that's a pretty good argument for getting some pro level work done. So let's go. Kyle Ruggles, me too. I got to catch up with Mr. Robot. I really thought it was done with the previous season. Because I'm not on the pulse like I used to be. I was very surprised that we got another season on Mr. Robot. It's such a kind of a, not under the radar, but it's one of those more niche drama thrillers that I didn't think would have as broad an appeal as it does. So this is the part of the podcast. We're going to take just a quick pause. 2019 was a tough year, I feel, for content creators. Lots of changes to various platforms. YouTube's moves were very aggressive and I think almost universally poorly communicated to the user base there. And I keep looking back at my own personal history. We talked about this a little last week, 10 years of tech. And like I started my first web show in late 2009. So I mean, this is a decade of working online for content. Sometimes as a hobby and sometimes as what actually pays bills to put a roof over my family's head. And the challenges now in maintaining an audience, growing an audience, are pretty profound. It's not enough to have been popular at one point in time and coast on that. The algorithms and the metrics and the distribution are now heavily weighted in favor of tentpole popularity. Whatever is a trending topic is going to perform way better, even for an audience that says they want content from a certain producer. And there are a lot of middlemen now. What gets in between you and someone who might be interested in your content? So one of the ways over 2019 that I really started to try and push to use some of these tools to our advantage was to set up a subreddit. Every podcast has their own subreddit. Some subreddits are, hey, share news links with us and maybe we'll talk about those on the show, or hey, just come hang out and tell us how great we are. But my subreddit is all about promoting content creators in the tech space that we feel deserve more attention. Not necessarily just the smallest YouTube producers, but anyone. We keep losing out on great shows from talented and knowledgeable hosts because of those difficulties in building audience, building mind share. I think one of the saddest and quietest losses in 2019 was TechThing. So you've got Patrick Norton, who's been a staple of tech commentary since the Tech TV and G4 days, or before the G4 days on Tech TV. Was huge through those early years of Revision 3 streaming and Blip, and when YouTube still had some competition. And he had a show. He had a show with Shannon Morse, she's an expert on security platforms. I actually was just CC'd on a PR email with her where they didn't BCC all of their press contacts. They CC'd all of their press contacts. And Shannon came in immediately to say, hey guys, thanks for not protecting our data. Awesome. Good job, PR agency. So, much respect. That was a great show. But, a live stream for them maybe got a new broadcast for them maybe got a couple thousand hits. And there wasn't a lot of push to share it. You wouldn't find them on other popular communities. That sucks. That really sucks that we lose something like that. Really well-produced tech review and commentary show. I don't like to see those kinds of things happen. So I started a subreddit, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. and it's really, really broad. It's not going to look like the overly manicured YouTube feed. I regularly see things on my subreddit that I'm subscribed to those channels on YouTube and I've smashed those bell icons, but they don't show up in my timeline, in my feed, when they're actually being published. You know, again, YouTube is acting like Facebook in moving this content around and cultivating your subscription feed for you. So I just want to briefly go, these are the top stories on Glowing Rectangles this week. Oh, Tech Love and Mama's in the live chat. Oh, and Boing Bite. And I saw someone else in there too that should have had a shout out. Sorry. Oh, and Cray 102. Excellent. Okay. Top stories, Glowing Rectangles. Surprisingly, my Newegg CES preview from 5G to 8K is at the top of the charts. It is exceedingly rare that I am not only on but also winning my my own subreddit. But let me get back to the week view, because actually I don't think I won this week. No, there we go. Okay, this looks more correct. I refreshed my page and I forgot to reset the top for the week, because I'm really good at interneting. Over the last week, not just today, the Pixelbook Go review from Jacqueline, NBT88, Nothing But Tech. She's taken a spin at the Pixelbook Go. I had a review out on the Pixelbook Go. This is the top upvoted video on our Glowing Rectangles. I did get a Newegg video. Can Google Stadia be saved? This has been an interesting topic, one that we've been talking about quite a bit on the SomeGadgetGuy Discord. Game streaming, game platforms, new consoles. 2020 is going to be a heavy year for gaming news. And one of the things that's going to be very tricky to see is what Google does in this space. I feel like there are very obvious concerns with Google over their ability to refine a product over time. And Stadia launched with that kind of negative buzz that to me would be an indicator that it'll probably get cut in 2022. You know, like it'll slowly wither on the Google vine. Internally, there won't be a lot of interest in working on it, and then it'll disappear with little fanfare as Microsoft goes on to do game streaming for real with xCloud and Microsoft Game Pass. So we've got a poll on that. You can vote in that poll. Also drop us some comments, because we're going to be following that a lot over at Newegg. Newegg has an interest in talking about services and platforms because they also sell a lot of computer components, and they actually make a lot of money on console accessory sales. So they care a lot what's happening with the gaming space. I feel it's going to be a slow burn, and it's going to disrupt the wealthiest segment first. But that's just me. So let me get this back here. And then number 3, the number 3 most upvoted video of the last week, coming by way of my boy LFA Reviews. There we go. Ugh, that one sounded gross, but it felt great. The new Tautronics Sound Surge 46 active noise canceling headphones, still king. He's been a big fan of Tautronics. He's got a review on some awesome headphones. And again, from my personal side of content in 2020, I'm going to be talking about hearing health and audio tech a lot over this year. Hashtag 2020 hearing. I'm reaching out to some PR, some doctors' offices to get more interviews for audiologists and hearing health tech as we gear up for a year of trying to treat our ears with at least some of the same respect that we treat our eyes. So those are the top 3. We've got Nothing But Tech, we've got Newegg, we've got LFA. Rounding out the rest of the top stories, my iPhone 11 Pro video is in the top 5. Jason with the LG V50 long-term review. He's crowning the V50 the Android phone of 2019. And then a comparison between a Pixel 3a and a Galaxy A51. Another Galaxy A51 impressions video coming by way of Gadget Byte. And Easy Easy Computer Solutions rocking a green screen tutorial, shooting green screen on a budget, where if you're not hip to that kind of stuff, it's not hard these days to start getting into it, and you can start chroma keying and processing and editing that footage on a phone. Just about every major video editor, top tier video editor for Android and for iOS now has chroma keying, so you can cut out your green screen and put a backdrop behind it. PowerDirector just lit up a new blending mode, so you can have multiple video clips kind of fading through each other. It's heady stuff, and it's not nearly as difficult or as intensive to set up as it was back in the day. And Aditya Anil, easy. I did not get my notifications for that. I need to watch it. So that's the last play. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. We've got a lot of people now sharing content. We still need your help in upvoting, on commenting, on participating. When you go to this subreddit, I guarantee you will find content creators you've never found or you've never seen on YouTube. Especially in this whole like popularity algorithm tent pole. Is it a trending topic? Is it Apple? Is it Samsung? No. Okay, well, it gets kind of buried. You'll get there eventually, we're sure. But if we can start to push some of the numbers on this subreddit, there's a much greater likelihood that this subreddit will become a feeder for more popular subreddits, for larger subreddits. And then these content creators get a bigger boost out of their online activity. It helps promote, it helps distribute, it helps get new eyeballs on their content, and then that means we all get cooler stuff to watch. We get more content to view. Like it was in 2019, this is going to be another mission of mine in 2020. A passive view doesn't help a content creator much. You watch their video and you like their video, give them a share, give them a tweet, give them a thumbs up, give them a like. Some extra bit of activity beyond just, I watched their video, what are they going to make next? That's how you get more cool stuff. And YouTube really isn't the platform it used to be for building that career, for fostering new talent, for promoting the voices that are established on their platform. A dude like Flossie Carter has been so consistent in his video production, but he doesn't pull the numbers he really deserves, not off of his subscriber base and not off of how good his content is. So we can be the tip of the spear in trying to change that and trying to fix it. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. I hope you'll check it out. I hope you'll give it a follow. Every week we pick up a handful of new subscribers and participants. And I hope you'll share, comment, post, and upvote. You share a video on that platform, click a couple up arrows as you leave, just to help out your fellow community of online content creators. Boing Bite. Flossie Carter is cool, not gonna lie. And then from Snooze J Mall, Flossie, it's a go, Carter, LOL. Again, like, we sort of lose track of these guys, and a part of that is how are they getting shared and promoted on these algorithmic platforms? And if they don't get the same push that they used to, that's not because they stopped making good content. That's because there's now a machine learning middleman in between you and the content you subscribe to. Okay, so let's talk some CES. General vibe. Consumer Electronics Show 2020. Who's been following some of the announcements, the press releases? Anyone in the live chat got anything that they're excited to talk about, or products that were released? Drop some comments, drop some links. We've got there's already my email has been exploding with PR and press releases. I got to take another bigger drink of water here. Matt Tyler, feels good in the hands. I'll say it now. Flossie Carter is the only one legitimately that gets to say things like that. Anyone else who's, it feels really good in the hand, is like the most useless tech commentary in the world. Oh, let me pick up this phone. Oh yeah, I've got my my Xperia. You know what's really nice about this Xperia 5 is, unlike This year, they decided not to make it out of razor blades. Like you can hold it. Like it's almost like they had a team of engineers who were looking at the evolved primate grip that most humans have, and they thought of a way to make a computer that could generally fit inside the evolved primate grip. I mean, that's really refreshing. I'm really glad that I've taken time out of my video to talk about how something which is now sort of a general commodity product, and all smartphones are built sort of the same. But it's good. It's good. I mean, if you were wondering if this phone would cut off your fingers while you tried to use it, it won't do that. It feels good in the hand. It doesn't feel like that moment after a grenade detonates and you're holding on to it. That's not what you'll get here, unless it's a Galaxy Note 7. So, Boeing Bite, I am going to be talking about a 360 hertz monitor. I caught that one too. So, not a Kun 61. The real reason Razer stopped making phones feels like a razor in the hand. Ooh, ouch. I want to kick off. I think med tech and health tech is probably going to be one of the biggest categories at the show, probably one of the more successful categories at the show. And it's the kind of stuff that I don't think is going to have the most exciting coverage. If you're writing a tech outlet here, a lot of these types of consumery products aren't going to drive a ton of traffic to your blog, to your website, or to the videos that you produce. But I think that we're going to see a general evolution and a push towards this type of lifestyle tech permeating shops, permeating the consumer experience. So I want to start a company that's actually had kind of a roller coaster ride of ownership over the last couple of years. Consistently, they've turned out solid products, and Withings is updating their lineup of smartwatches. Withings, this cute little boutique-y lifestyle technology company. They made smart scales. I still use, I've got a Withings thermometer, which is like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi enabled, and like syncs up with like a profile. So as you take a temperature reading and it swipes across your forehead, it syncs up that data so you can see trends over time. I mean, like it's such gross overkill for a thermometer, but it's so good. I did a combo review with Bored at Work talking about the Withings thermometer, but they got bought out by Nokia, the official what's left of the Nokia name, not HMD. And then Nokia kind of just gave them back. Like it was this rocking ride back and forth over like a 2-year period. But their new smartwatch, the ScanWatch, actually looks pretty solid. I've only used the first generation Withings smartwatch, but this new one has an entire series of new heart rate tracking capabilities. So not just getting your pulse, not just getting your pulse, but also checking your ECG heart rate rhythm. So there's like a little demo video here. They've got this cute little OLED display built into the front face of the watch. Otherwise, it's a very classic looking analog timepiece, not too dissimilar from what Fossil was doing with their hybrid watches like the Skagen. I really like the look of a very minimal, almost kind of Finnish, from Finland kind of design. But they're updating all of their sensors. So now this is going to be one of the first official competitors to what you can do on an Apple Watch for testing heart rate and heart rhythm with that ECG. Again, just showing it right there. So that's exciting. I like seeing this kind of an evolution coming into medical tech. We've already gotten a few of those stories talking about how someone got a new Apple Watch and they got a weird reading, and then they went and talked to their doctor, and it turns out they did have some kind of issue, or they didn't have an issue. They just had some sort of minor blip, but now it's a part of their health record, and they at least know what to look for. So I love this design. I love this look. The only thing I'd want to know are if the rest of the smart features complement the watch, or if this is just going to be sort of like a fancy step and heart rate tracker. A medical grade electrocardiogram anytime, anywhere. But they also have sleep apnea detection on your wrist, looking at your oxygen saturation and if you're getting a good night rest. Fitness tracking, obviously, with the ability to, like, you know, track your steps and your heart rate at the same time. Just a ton of medical data. And I think as we kind of go through these, and from Sam, it looks real classy. It looks pretty cool. From Soulless Geek, do you think it'll get acceptance or certification the way Apple was able to? I think because Apple paved the way for that. I mean, for as much as I'm critical over things like iPhone 11 Pro marketing, Apple Watch from Series 4 on is just such a wonderfully refined smartwatch experience. It makes me so crazy jealous. My favorite aspect of going back to review an iPhone is getting to pull out my Apple Watch and use it as a daily driver watch again. I can do that on my iPhone SE. I don't need an iPhone 11 Pro for that. But it's a nice perk, right? It's so well done that because Apple's already gone through this process, I feel like there's now a better recognition of tech in this space. A more traditional consumer electronics company getting into med tech, that now we probably have the beginnings of a system so that these companies know better how to certify their products for this type of use. Oh, and from Sam, I already use a CPAP. I actually need to start tracking my sleep. I know I'm not getting enough rest. And my wife, she has a Fitbit. It's been tracking her sleep. And according to her Fitbit, she's getting like 2 hours of actual restful sleep every night. So a part of this, I just got to know, like, am I keeping her up at night? But again, I want to be able to see. I want to be able to see if the rest of the smart features contribute. That always seems to be like this dividing line. You get some like wrist computing features, and then it turns out to be a really crap fitness tracker. Get these amazing fitness tracking capabilities, and then, but I can't even reply to a text. Samsung gets us really close, but I find the Gear UI to be really fiddly. Like you're scrolling and you're doing a lot of this to go through. And right now, I'm wearing a TicWatch. I really like the TicWatch, but if I'm out and about, I might just be wearing my focals. And you're like, my heads-up display glasses are so much faster, cleaner, and smoother to interact with notifications on my phone than anything I would ever do from my watch. As soon as I've got to like swipe and move and then wait, and then I'll push the microphone icon and then wait, and then it'll pulse, and then I can talk. Oh, it didn't get the voice transcription. I've got to do it again. I could have just picked up my phone and done the thing from my phone. That's what I'd want. I mean, like, I don't think Withings is going to give us a bunch of smart features. I just hope that that's the next kind of addressable usability concern. All right. Going from audio and going from heart rate to sort of, I don't have a good transition for this. We're done talking about Withings. Smartwatch looks cool. I hope it's a good smartwatch. Looks like it's going to be a great fitness and heart rate tracker. This is a write-up coming by way of Engadget. How do you brush your teeth? Oral-B has an AI toothbrush coming out. So this is announced at CES. They think their AI toothbrush can clean your teeth better than you can. What you need is sort of a 3D tracking app so that you are getting all of the surfaces clean. That is actually a little cool. I use an electric toothbrush, and it's got those little pulses to let you know when you're supposed to switch regions. And I zone out. I don't know that I'm actually like getting every surface the way that I should. So Oral-B, a giant of the toothbrushing industry. Sorry, I know I'm being a little snarky here, but this is exactly what I mean. Like, this is a story that typically wouldn't get a ton of play just any other time of the year, but CES is kind of the right place to do this. Oral-B, a giant of excuse me, a giant of the toothbrushing industry, has been making electric toothbrushes for years, incorporating consumer tech trends like smartphone apps and Bluetooth. Every few years, the company takes advantage of the scrum of CES to announce its latest powered toothbrush, and 2020 is no exception. Oral-B just announced the I.O., a new device the company says is the result of 6 years of R&D and input from over 1,800 users. So lots of big, tough talk claims, but they're saying reducing gingivitis, 83% of their patients had their gum classification changed from unhealthy to healthy, but it's not expected to launch until August of 2020. So you're still in for a wait. My birthday's in August, so if anyone wants to get me an Oral-B AI toothbrush, I won't fight you on that, but it is kind of silly. It's just one of those things like I can't remember the name of the company. Is it Quip? They're turning their electric toothbrush into more of a subscription service. You know, like not only do you buy this really nice toothbrush, I think you can find them in Target now, and then you sign up for their, you know, like every 3 months they send you new heads and maybe new toothpaste. You know, again, making everything about brushing your teeth sort of as streamlined as possible. But they sort of built up the whole idea of like, oh, and you're supposed to brush for 2 minutes, so here are these pulses to let you know when to switch sides and stuff. And my toothbrush from years before could do that kind of stuff too. But it's just interesting watching like the tech play start to move into something like this. You know, I know a lot of people have dental issues. It's easy to learn bad habits in brushing your teeth. I don't know if tech is going to be the solution for this, but it's at least an attempt. It's at least a step in the right direction. From Boing Bite, in before, can't brush teeth when internet is down. Oh, how hilarious would that be if there was like an online connection check before you could fire up your toothbrush? That's hilarious. From Rosted, I have an Oral-B electric brush. I forget to charge it. That becomes another one of those things, you know, like my electric toothbrush has like a little inductive charger. You just put it on the stand by the sink and it kind of trickle charges and tops it off. I can still I've had it for 5 years now, and I can still get almost a week of use brushing twice a day. So that's not too bad. But again, I wonder what the impact is. You know, like the little brush heads, lots of plastic, lots of fibers, lots of manufacturing. I wonder how that actually impacts things like environmental concerns. You've now got electric toothbrushes with batteries in them. The batteries are almost always sealed. These are products that probably can't be repaired. Again, I have those kinds of concerns now. Like, what are we building towards? We might get a better tooth cleaning out of every generation of this smart brush technology. But what is the expectation on the life cycle of a product like this? How often is it supposed to be replaced? It's heady stuff. And again, like tech moves so quickly. I even wonder, like, when this launches in August, if I have a conversation with my dentist, will there be any knowledge of this product? Because I can't believe dentists are out there really keeping on top of the tech announcements coming out of CES this year. So, Rosted, it would be crazy if the toothbrush would schedule appointments for you. So, Rosted, if you caught the LG keynote for CES, they had a lot of that. Well, the next stage of AI is going to be this type of interactive response. And they'd cut to these little skits of a woman in her living room like, oh no, I'm out of orange juice. Can you order me more? And that's a stage 1 AI. But stage 2, the AI will look for you in your refrigerator and order you orange juice. And so now, like, imagine an Oral-B toothbrush that communicates with an app and then hits up your Google Assistant. While brushing, I detected 2 cavities. Can you schedule an appointment for Juan's dentist? I'm like, son of a... I can't even hide from this stuff anymore. It's rough. Data directly uploaded to your dentist. I love it. He has not been brushing as consistently and as thoroughly as he should be. So, again, I don't have good transitions for any of these. This is just sort of a smattering of the early press releases that I got this morning, and some of the things that I thought would be kind of fun to talk about. Again, anyone has other links and stuff to share, please drop them in the live chat. But one that was both exciting and depressing for me, I got a handful of press releases from different outlets, different PR teams, that one of the hottest new trends in consumer electronics is going to be hearables. You see, I don't know if any of you are aware, especially those of you who watch or listen to my podcast regularly, but we're facing an epidemic, like horrifically, shockingly high numbers of younger people experiencing hearing loss, and that these trends have been skyrocketing over the last 10 years. And we don't want to examine behavior. We don't want to look at what might be causing some of these increases in hearing loss. 20 and 30-year-olds that are already kind of in the ballpark for needing some kind of hearing aid or hearing assistance. And hearing aids are tremendously expensive, where a nice hearing aid could probably run you around $3,000 a year, not counting the office visits, the specialists, the fact that this is often not covered by any kind of insurance here in North America. And then the other things too, the supplement to that, where you might have to get molds or a special fitting done. Just the hearing aid itself, $6,000 for both ears on your skull. Plus. So I think a lot of us might look at the correlation between this rise in hearing loss, especially hearing loss in young people, and the rise of adopting technologies like smartphones and music players that can go all day, where the ear very rarely gets a break from being constantly bombarded with some kind of sound. And yeah, tech is a part of this problem, so tech companies are going to help solve this problem. You don't need to spend $3,000 on a hearing aid. We have this hot new market segment called hearables. So I'm making this a bigger, scarier, angrier topic. But I actually have to say some of the early entrants into this space have been interesting to cover. The one brand I've spent the most time with is a company called Nuheara. And these are the IQ Buds. These are the IQ Buds Boost Max. I can't remember exactly what the different model names were, but this is the more expensive version of the IQ Buds. These originally launched at $500. They look like any regular true wireless in-ear earbud. But the whole point of these little buds was to use a lot of the same noise reduction technologies that we have for listening to content to sculpt environmental noise and try and focus on human speech. And while the effect is very AM radio, it's really hissy, they actually do a surprisingly good job in their stated mission. I do suffer some hidden hearing loss, where if you give me a hearing test in a quiet environment, I do really, really well. But if you take me to a noisy cafe with a lot of reflection and general sort of noise in the environment, I have a tremendously hard time actually hearing speech. More often than not, it's little bits of what I can hear, and I'm reading your lips to try and fill in the conversation. So Nuheara is at CES, and they launched out of the gates. They are updating the IQ Buds, and now we get the IQ Buds 2 Max. And go into screen share here. These are the IQ Bud 2 Max, another pair of true wireless earbuds. They're going to be a bit more vented. That's a design change I'll be curious to see if I can compare against the original IQ Buds, but it's going to be a general improvement to all of their noise reduction technologies. to, again, better help block noise in your environment and isolate, highlight, and enhance human speech. So one of the biggest updates, I should say, is they're using a different type of audio driver. This is going to be refined microphone technology. I mean, all of the things that we would expect in a take two on a product like this. But they're also going to be coming in substantially cheaper at launch than the IQ Buds were last year. So this price is getting dropped from $500 at launch to $350. That's still pricey, but I still haven't run into anything with this kind of hard specific focus on improving listening, improving hearing. I reviewed the Audiera last year, or was it the year before? Lots of ear tuning, like how can you customize the EQ of your headphones to hear your music better. A lot of this is why I'm so disappointed in things like AirPods, is this push for an open ear design so that you can hear what's going on around you. And that's the least healthiest way to listen to audio on earbuds. So instead, we're going to see a whole generation of products now kicking forward. I think New Hero was one of the first to make as big a play as they did and not have it be one of those terrible made for, infomercial, as seen on TV kinds of products. I just wear a microphone around my neck and it just amplifies everything. And you're like, those things are horrible for you. They're really bad. But again, we've got a whole consumer group out there that doesn't understand that they need that kind of hearing assistance, or that they don't have the money to buy real, true, proper hearing aids. So this is going to be a mid-price, mid-capability kind of solution for a lot of consumers out there. I really do feel we're going to be seeing a number of people, probably in their 30s, start shopping solutions like this. Like, this is going to be one of those add-on perks. In a couple of years, Jabra is going to have enhanced voice modeling technologies and a pair of true wireless, and that'll make a purchasing decision. Bose will probably start doing stuff like this. Beats will probably start doing stuff like this. And so someone might not seek out a manufacturer who only does this, but it's going to be one of those value ads. Like, yeah, it's like $200 for some AirPods or $250 for some Beats, and they've got more microphones and voice modeling tech built in. I think it's going to be an often requested feature for Bluetooth earphones moving forward. Gary the Fireman, are hearables like Lunchables? Oof, Lunchables are gross. From Solus Geek, I have hell with those hearing booths. I hear phantom tones. A lot of people suffering from tinnitus. And again, if you're already suffering some kind of impact on your hearing or hearing health or hearing loss, it can always get worse. So try and protect what you do have. From Snoozy J Ma, I'm going to buy these for my gramp so he can finally quit yelling. I was very surprised. Like I said, I've got a full review on the YouTube channel or on SomeGadgetGuy.com. Search for Nuheara, Nuheara. Excuse me. And it looks, the biggest problem I had with them is that it looks socially awkward. So I took them out. We did this. We went to Buca di Beppo, which is a really loud restaurant. Lots of of the plate and fork clink clatter and reflective picture frames on walls, and you're just bombarded by sound all over. And it does look really funky when you're having a conversation with someone and they don't take out their earbuds. That became the weird, I'd get those weird quizzical looks like, are you talking to me? Are you on the phone? You're talking to me? Are you listening to me? Are you ignoring me? Is this rude? That was the biggest hurdle, surprisingly, to overcome. Once I would have that kind of, explanation, it didn't sound great. It wasn't like beautiful, pristine, high fidelity, but it was like all of the noise just got kind of pushed a little further down, and the voice got a little bright and crispy and airy, but I could hear it better. And so I could latch onto that a little bit better. And I very quickly, I wasn't doing the I'm looking at your mouth, not making eye contact thing. It's amazing. Like your brain goes, oh, well, that's better. And then you just sort of relax into having a conversation again. I think one of the only other bummers was I couldn't tell how loud my voice was because I had earbuds in. So I'd have people leaning in to try and hear me better, but I could hear them fine. It was pretty great. Oh man, people talking about hearing loss and stuff. Oh, and a couple people talking about gaming headsets. I think we'll get some cool gaming gear at CES this year too. I mean, again, a lot of those companies will probably save their big announcements for E3, but it's refreshing to see traditional recording and audio manufacturers taking gaming headsets very seriously. I was very happy with Audio-Technica and Sennheiser last year, and for some of it being wireless, which usually is a dirty word in both gaming and in audio. Excuse me. Ross did. I always feel strange talking to people with headphones on. I don't want to be the dudes screaming. And that's a part of the sort of social arrangement. I've got my earbuds in, someone kind of gets my attention, I pop one out, we have a conversation. The ones that throw people are bone conduction, where they see something like on your skull, but they can't immediately see that it's not in your ear. So I don't just take off my earbuds, maybe I pause, maybe I don't even need to pause if what I'm listening to is fairly quiet. And I just have a conversation. I was at the deli counter wearing my AfterShokz, and again, it was a young guy, just kind of carving up some turkey for me. And I'm having this conversation, and he's like looking, and like he's got this look on his face. And I'm not really thinking anything about it because my brain is used to this experience where I don't have to pause my music. It's just floating in the background, and I can still hear everything that's going on around me. And it took me way too long to figure out that that's what was throwing him. And so I oh yeah, they're just headphones. You can see my ear is totally open. And like his eyes just go super bright, super wide. I pull him off to the side and I put him on, and he's like, oh yeah, I can kind of hear the music, and oh, that's interesting, but isn't it just like a speaker? And then I say, well, put your fingers in your ears. And he does, and it blocks out all of the noise around him. And then suddenly the sound is like super, super loud and present. And you're like, that's the type of audio experience I wish it were easier to share. You have to do that one-on-one, like every individual person. Because most people are just going to kind of kick back and like, oh, I'm just going to use my ear pods that came with my iPhone that are terrible for my ears and sound mediocre, but it's convenient. And then you put something like that on them and it's like magic. But we don't take that seriously for general consumers. Because it's, like I can write an article about it. And I just told this story on a podcast. But until you experience it, it's a totally foreign reaction. Like it's not something you've experienced. You don't have a base of comparison for it other than mediocre earbuds. So it is what it is. But I'm totally going to reach out to the New Hera PR and see if I can get a loaner on the IQ buds too, because we're all going to need a lot of help like that moving into the future. Okay. One of the other announcements that I just thought was kind of interesting, that's finally getting sort of its reveal, but we knew it was kind of floating around for a while. Let me get this. Oh, and Matt Tyler's leaving the chat, and everyone pretty much already has said goodbye to Matt Tyler. So Matt Tyler, thanks for tuning in and thanks for joining the show. From Snoozy J Mall, one of my favorite things is hearing new notes in songs I've heard 100 times before. I went through this with my wife very recently. We got her molded ear tips. And she's not a recording engineer. She's not a session mixer or anything like that. But that's, it's usually a pretty pro solution to get molded ear tips. And she is now on the fiercest audio kick I've ever seen that woman jump on. She's using Bluetooth cans where she never used to use Bluetooth headphones. She's actually gotten a few complaints, like in her office, because as she's working on spreadsheets and talent payments and contracts, she's got fitted earbuds in, so the noise of her office is a little lower. And because of that fit and that isolation, she's hearing things in music that she's never heard before. Like, she's a huge classic rock and roll fan, you know, the Beatles to the Stones and the Beach Boys and stuff like that. And she's hearing pet sounds for the very first time, for real. That kind of stuff is huge. And again, it's like if you took someone who had a late or an early 90s CRT TV and then plopped them in front of like the biggest, baddest, super awesome HDR 4K TV, it'd be like a revelation of content. Like the image, the clarity, the picture would be incredible. And we've got these solutions for audio today. It's just consumers don't use them. I think they've been promised amazing sound quality on so many different products, and then it's kind of the same as what they've always heard or what they've always used, and they don't really, okay, well, that wasn't special. But when you give them something that is legit good, it's special. But it's hard to do that one-on-one for every consumer who might be interested in improved audio quality. Oh, yeah, and Soulless Geek talking about issues with friends of his that are on iPhones. And I think another disappointing thing for the iPhone is even when you do want to make that jump to like Bluetooth, you get some real nice Bluetooth cans, the iPhone doesn't support higher quality codecs. So here's this premium device that pushed Bluetooth on us because they got rid of the headphone jack, and you can't use aptX or LDAC. So you could get some awesome Sonys, but you're going to be transmitting over AAC. You're not really going to get the full experience of what you're paying for. So it's tough. It's tough to make that feel more exciting, or to really get what you pay for when you spend more to get an iPhone. I like this disease description. That's why, from Goran Petrovic replying to Snoozy, it is that's why audiophilia is contagious. And Soulless Geek rocking an LG V30. You know, plug it into an aux, plug it into really nice headphones. Even if you don't give up your favorite phone of choice, I would, again, highly recommend picking up an old beat-up LG with a quad DAC just to use as a media player. Like, go get a V20 or a V30. You can get them so cheap today, and it's going to outperform most standalone media players. You can go and spend like $300 or $400 on a FIO or a Sony, or you could bet like an LG V30 for like $150 and a half a ham sandwich, and it's going to be just as competitive. And it's going to be better for things like watching movies. If you want to use it as like, you know, like I'm flying on an airplane and I've got my V30 up just with a bunch of movies downloaded on it. Cool. Go to town. It's crazy stuff. Okay. Sorry, I started talking about this, then I'm always easy to sidetrack when it comes to talking about audio. Ooh, ow, sorry, and I just punched my keyboard. RIP headphone users, my apologies. So, this is the fun little reveal. I really have fun with alternative methods of computing. I feel like support is becoming a bigger deal, where consumers generally have satisfied their computing needs over the last couple years. For a lot of the programs, apps, services, I don't really feel like the average consumer out there has needed the year-to-year chipset, RAM, storage improvements that we get. If you're an enthusiast, you care about eking out that performance, getting that bang for buck. But if your general computing lifestyle has been work on a couple documents, open a couple spreadsheets, and a web browser. I feel like we well satisfied that 5 years ago in both Mac and PC land. So when a consumer might be shopping something like a new home PC, or if a company is looking at rolling out a bunch of PCs, the idea of a dedicated tower of a workstation just doesn't really vibe with me today with what that individual might actually need to get their gig done. It's always nicer to have a lot more computing power. It's maybe a little bit smoother. You open app a little bit faster. Obviously, if you're into more graphics heavy, editing heavy types of applications, you want a beefier rig. But what we're talking about here is the sort of lower level of compute power, which has been satisfied for years. So fully getting revealed, but it's been kind of out in the air for a little while, is the new generation of Intel NUCs. We did a whole multi-monitor gaming setup on last year's NUC lineup. NUC is this Intel program which stands for Next, what is it? Next Unit Computing or something like that? I can't remember what that actually stands for. Yeah, none of my links here have it up and ready. But these tiny little computers from Intel, and they just took the wraps off of a not so tiny NUC. Let me get this queued up here. By way of lilypudding.com, Intel Ghost Canyon NUC with discrete graphics support to ship with Comet Lake H compute element. So this is a fairly big box. NUCs are typically like one step bigger than like a Raspberry Pi enclosure. I actually got to look at one of these at Newegg. They had one, but it's like a proper mini form factor, mini ITX or super mini ITX motherboard style setup. But we're finally starting to see these rolling out now. Next Unit Computing. Thank you, Boeing Byte. From Solus Geek, NUC, which stands for Next Unit of Computing, is a small form factor computer kit manufactured by Intel. Motherboards measure 4 inches by 4 inches, come with a plastic case and a CPU fan, and an external PSU. So what makes this one different is it's not that 4x4. It is much larger, but it's so that you can fit one of these small form factor GPUs, a discrete GPU. And then they're also doing something different with, I don't have a photo of that up. But the NUC compute element is like a plug-in card. So you get this little sort of PCIe slot style card, which has your CPU and applicable hardware on it. You plug that in. So that could also be a way that these are more upgradable over time. From Boeing, but yeah, it is much closer to like sort of in that ITX ballpark. I'm very positive on this. You know, prices can climb really high, but the general idea is, what if we took all of the guts of a sort of mid-range laptop and shoved them into as small a profile as possible? And like I said, Newegg, we've been playing with NUCs for a couple of years now. So, Boeing Byte, still 14 nanometer. Excuse me. So, I have a little bit of a confession. I got an engineering sample on this next generation NUC, not the big boy. I didn't rank high enough, but I'm going to be shooting a video on this little guy right here. And this is the lowest end NUC that they currently sell. This is the 10i3 FNK. And this is what your traditional NUC form factor looks like. It's, just a tiny little box, but you've got your HDMI, Ethernet, USB, Thunderbolt, USB, micro SD card reader, front-facing USB 3.2 front-facing ports. It's rocking a little Core i3. I got 16 gigabytes of RAM in this, a Plex Store 500 gig solid state drive. And if you've been watching the podcast over the last 2 weeks, this is actually the computer that was hosting the podcast. So connecting it to my dual monitor setup, hooking up my capture card so that you can see my camera. It was all done on this. This is a tiny little box that without RAM or a hard drive or an operating system starts at $350. So it's a $350 micro PC. You need to add bits to it. It's just a computer kit. But I've found them to be refreshingly capable, upgradable, and obviously my podcast isn't super heavy lifting. It's an OBS window with a camera input, and I capture my web browser. But no difference to me, like no discernible difference in getting the stream up and running, getting the audio recorded for it, and sharing that live, on this. So I've been very happy. It's this is the type of consumer push. You could literally just like bolt this onto the back of a larger monitor and create the experience of having something like an iMac for a lot less. DJ Anil, hashtag bamboozled. It's hilarious. Soulless Geek, Intel is having a heck of a time getting over that 14 nanometer bump. But I feel like if we're comparing price performance, excuse me, capabilities, and what it is that you really expect out of a platform like that, the enthusiast space is definitely concerned about chip fab manufacturing, and one of the advantages AMD needs to capitalize on this year. But there are so many uses for a tiny little laptop grade power experience. This is a Core i3. I mean, it's not like we're talking about some crazy exciting tier of performance where I'm going to be rendering super heavy 4K video at 60 frames per second. Like that's not what this is for. And a starting price at $350 makes this eminently competitive against what future computer some of my family members might need. And that to me is what gets to be really exciting. I think our phones have the compute power we've needed for a couple years now. Since the Snapdragon 835, I think we've been overbuying for compute power there. A lot of consumers would be able to do all of their work off of something like a phone grade chipset if they had the right software to back it up. And so something like this is now just an additional competition point against where the market might go for a fairly robust desktop home computing environment. Now, this one is probably going to go to live behind our living room TV. I think I'm going to gut it off of just being a general all-purpose PC and maybe make it more of like a gaming and emulation setup. And then also, I still run a Plex server off of my NAS. So connecting all of that on our home network could be pretty cool, and having a more the Samsung Plex app, not great on my smart TV. So having a proper computer behind that TV, probably going to be better if we're looking at moving high quality 1080p and 4K video around on our home network. So I'm going to be doing a full video breakdown, just taking this thing back apart, showing you the RAM that we got, installing the SSD, and talking a little bit more about some of my experiences using it. But it's great. It slotted right into what I use my giant, huge, awesome Threadripper workstation for. And for hosting a live stream, phenomenal. So if you were seriously considering like being a game streamer, play the game off of your PC or console, the real good dedicated gaming machine, and then dedicate all of the stream resources over to a tiny little low power pocket computer, awesome. I mean, like, that kind of stuff gets really exciting. Kyle Ruggles, exactly, a game streaming tool. I'm looking forward to that video. So we've got, what do we got? We got two more major pre-show announcements to talk about. talking about gaming and streaming and the craziness what is game tech and game hardware these days. Someone I have already forgotten who requested that we talk about monitors, but this is definitely going to be the biggest headline for gaming displays coming out of the show this year. This is a story coming by way of Anantech. NVIDIA and ASUS unveil 360 hertz 1080p G Sync monitor, the ROG Swift 360. Bom, 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 bom. Boing by, you were the one that brought it up. Thank you. Excuse me. Even though CES proper hasn't kicked off for one more day, NVIDIA and ASUS are getting in an announcement a bit ahead of the curve related to a new monitor. The two companies have been working, The two companies have been working on a new high-performance 1080p display aimed at competitive gaming that offers a blistering 360 hertz maximum refresh rate, 50% faster than the current crop of 240 hertz market leaders. So this is overkill for me. What GPU do you need for that monster? Crazy. I think support, I mean, like, we'd be looking at roughly like something in the RTX 2070 or maybe the 2080 range. I don't know. Something tells me that if you're gaming at 1080p, you might be able to make some use of these faster refresh rates depending on the game you play, with even like a 1080 Ti. Again, I mean, like, if you're really trying to do the competitive esports, first-person shooter kind of setup, you're probably not trying to force the luscious graphics. You're trying to push the fastest frame rate. And if 360 is something that matters to you, I bet you could probably do it with a 2070. Goran Petrovic, it's worse than VR. Oh, Boing Bite just saying just a 2080 with a 5 gig CPU. That's all you need. Haha. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to be game engine limited too. That's a great point from Boing Bite. But you turn down your graphics settings, turn up that refresh rate, and I don't think 360 at 1080 is going to be too heavy if you're already talking about the premium PC gaming segment. Obviously, I mean, I'm pretty sure a 2080 could probably handle that. But I think it's kind of interesting, you know, like, I'm thinking to most of the games, even in the esports space, a lot of the games played, I'm wondering, it's got to be first-person shooters, right? First-person shooter, tactical or squad-based, esports style, that this is going to make the difference on. Where you're talking about the absolute fastest Twitch style of gameplay. I don't mean Twitch is in the streaming service. I mean literally just how fast can the brain send an impulse from the eye to the brain to the fingertips. Twitchy kind of gameplay. After that, I wonder how fast and how far refresh rate can impact the general experience on other types of consumable media. I really enjoy 90 hertz and 120 hertz displays on phones. But I wonder if we got to 240 hertz, if that would make a meaningful difference to experiencing that kind of general user consumer content. And I find myself doubting that it would be a bigger play. But yeah, so they're taking the panel and controller from ASUS, a Republic of Gamers monitor, 240 hertz, and basically overclocking it. So now our monitors are computers that can be overclocked just like any other computing platform. And also, I mean, like, this is another great point from Boeing Byte. 1080p at 1440 at 140 hertz is already super affordable. 144 hertz at 2K at 2560 by 1440 isn't prohibitively expensive these days. It's pricey, but it's not so bad that it gets unattainable unless you've got like some crazy, rich family member that can pay it all off for you. And see, in Kyle Ruggles, this is the same debate that we have with resolution. Like, what is the resolution of the human eye? Kyle Ruggles asks, What is real life Hertz? Like, how does real life look look that smooth, you know? And I wonder, like, what is the refresh rate of the human eye? Because it doesn't work like a camera or like a display or like a TV. But I wonder, like, could you calculate at what point there is zero discernible difference between looking around in real life and simulating that on a display that can cycle fast enough? I'd be curious to see if there's a scientific way to conclude that. Because with resolution, because the human eye doesn't see in resolution, you sort of measure visual acuity in arc minutes. At 20/20 vision, with a minimum focusing distance of the human eye on around a 6-inch display, the maximum resolution that the human eye can discern is just above 4K. So, that means holding, where do I mean, like, this is my Xperia 5. But like holding something at the minimum focusing distance, and you're keeping this as close to your face as your human eye can focus and resolve, we're at a 4K display. Beyond that, again, that's 20/20, so people can have higher quality vision than that. I wonder what the refresh, what is the fluidity measurement that we would use to talk about something like that. And DTNL, isn't that what we do in movies? Like, we spin a set of images fast enough to fool our brain into believing that those images are moving. But it's funny that the cinema standard is still 24 frames per second. We have taken movies to actually have a more interrupted style of movement, and that we classify as cinematic. Like, that's somehow more immersive for films. But for gaming, gaming shows how we rely on a different experience for consuming that kind of media. And for there, we want faster and more fluid and sleeker frame rates. It's funny. Like, the psychology moves us through different things back and forth. I feel like higher frame rate films get criticized because it's easier to see some of the flaws. There's less motion blur. The image is a little crisper. It moves more fluidly, which can look a little unnatural when we're used to watching TV or 24 frame per second films. But you don't want that for gaming. You don't want a choppy 24 frame per second frame rate when you're trying to play a game, because that, I feel like that helps contribute to things like motion sickness. So anyway, Netakun, the answer is 42. The answer is always 42. And Kyle Ruggles, 24 frames was used to save money back in the day because film wasn't cheap. No lie. I mean, the standard for film used to be 16 frames per second, and that used to be the cinematic experience. It was a big deal when we upped that by 50% to get 24 frames per second. Excuse me. Soulless Geek, what is the frame rate of shows like Law and Order? I'm pretty sure that if it's shot on for TV now, I don't know that anyone's really shot above 60 frames. I mean, 30 frames. Some sort of 29.97 in the digital space. I don't know what the finished frame rate is on that. But I don't think anyone's shooting high frame rate for TV. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there are any 48 or 60 frame per second TV shows. Okay. One last little bit of news. Obviously, one of the hottest, the biggest announcements from CES this year. I can't think of anything more exciting. This is going to revolutionize everything that we use in modern technology. It's going to completely change the landscape of using our smartphones and using our smartphones in a more sort of traditional work desk environment. And I don't feel like I can express, like I can oversell how revolutionary this concept is going to be. I am, of course, being completely facetious in that Samsung is showing off selfie type. Hey, isn't this the mobile technology announcement that we were all excited for? you know? Because like smartphones are going to be announced at MWC in about a month. But that doesn't mean that Samsung isn't revolutionizing, isn't changing the game, shifting the paradigm, synergizing the workflow by using your selfie camera as a keyboard. Let's show some of the video. This is selfie type in action. I gotta mute it. Woo, selfie type. I bet they typed that on selfie type. So you're at the office. I'm gonna narrate this for the audio listeners. Someone's working on a keyboard and a mouse from their computer, and then an alert comes up on their phone, so they hold their hands flat on their desk, and the selfie camera looks at their hands and says, "Hey, type this message," and then they just sort of type on the desk, which has no visible landmarks or tactile landmarks. And the phone just knows what to type based on where you kind of poke your fingers around because you're typing on a selfie camera. And then they do it with a tablet because you're in the middle of a meeting. You don't want those clicky keys going off. You just want to shake the whole table and kind of tap. And it's working perfectly because, like, there'd never be any type of tracking or mistyping using a feature like this because Samsung solved it. Samsung fixed it. They know what's up. And now a folding phone, you can prop up a folding phone and look at that. Oh man, that's crazy. Just like a little mini clamshell or a laptop, and now you go to town. It still takes up half of your folding phone screen, but you've got air gestures and everything because that's what people want. So that's the key. They're showing it off now, and I guarantee to you that when this gets into an actual consumer product and it doesn't work, because that kind of stuff has never worked from laser keyboards to today, having some kind of alternate, or even just like flat surface typing on things like my old Lenovo. Like I love my Lenovo tablet. Typing on that thing, not great. People are actually already, if you look at the comments, like especially when I found this one on Reddit, the commentary here is, well, Samsung, you got to try things and you got to experiment, and that's how you innovate, and that's when we get new features. But if anyone else were to even show something like this, it would instantly be a deal-breaking gimmick. I mean, air gestures on an LG G8, people talk about that as a reason to not buy the phone. I was just in another Twitter exchange with someone. Oh, the G8 would have been a great phone, but I can't handle those air gestures. And you're like, well, then don't use them. Like, this is pretty simple. But again, this is Samsung though. So Samsung, no one's going to complain about, it's a gimmick on the phone, but you can just turn it off. You don't have to use selfie typing if you don't want to. We know they're going to get so much safe, positive shrug press where any other manufacturer, it would be a deal breaker. I don't want them to spend money on these gimmicks and make my phone more expensive. Oh, but Samsung. Oh, well, I mean, it's something that's a little half-baked. You don't have to use it, though. You can just turn it off. So, Kyle Ruggles, with Google, oh no, air gestures. They don't work perfectly like a science fiction film. I would imagine them the way they're supposed to work. But this is going to get a total pass by the tech industry with some eye rolling. But no one's going to act like this is like a deal breaker. Everyone's acting like the G8 or the Pixel 4. Oh, well, this is, gimmicks. Gimmicks are terrible. We should never have to pay for gimmicks. I don't know. That kind of stuff drives me crazy because I really am I'm a true believer. I think air gesture tech is going to be not necessarily in phones, but just in general, like the ability to kind of interact and not have to have certain types of hard control surfaces. Once this kind of stuff is more recognizable by like monitors, displays, TVs, your hands become the remote control for the experience. That kind of stuff I think is going to be kind of a big deal. But again, the thing that bothers me is like I can show on a G8, like it's not that hard. The gesture stuff is easy. If you took a minute, it's silly, but it's not like broken like people were making it out to be. And for the G8, that was also the hardware for secure face unlock. Oh, but let's ignore that because Samsung certainly didn't have any security gimmicks with their unsecure face unlock and their fingerprint sensors, which were fooled by gel screen protectors. No, we must pick on the smaller companies. So I'm sure with all of the buzzwordiness, AI, machine learning, smart algorithms, I'm sure Samsung has a better take on this than the laser keyboards that came out back in the Windows Mobile days. But I'm more just frustrated that the general tone and the write-ups seem actually excited, like this is going to be some amazing shift in the paradigm of using our phones, when it's probably not going to be good. I want this stuff to get better, but I also feel like the major killer applications are going to be things like home automation and VR and AR. You know, like the hand tracking that you can do on an Oculus now is pretty impressive. I'm not going to give Facebook money, but when that comes to Vive and to Steam, I'm going to be way more excited about interacting in games without controllers, like literally with just my hands. Like that's going to be super, super cool. A little less cool on a phone, but I get it. It's a testing platform. It's a place for us to experiment a bit. I just wish those experiments were sort of fairly covered from other manufacturers too. Again, I'm frustrated with people who reviewed things like the G8, but then didn't actually try the air gestures. You know, like if you just show it once and like, oh, it didn't work. I tried it once and it didn't do anything. You're not really a reviewer. And if you couldn't figure out LG air gestures, then I feel like you're bad at tech. Like whether or not a consumer wants to take a couple minutes to figure it out, that's totally fair. But if you're a reviewer, I feel like you're bad at your job if you didn't spend the couple minutes to get it right. So that's my take. Gary the Fireman, I will pay Facebook exactly $0.0 for anything. Kyle Ruggles immediately after #delete Facebook. Matt Tyler, gimmicks aren't 5 to 9 cameras on a phone. Just a gimmick is you don't really need that many, but you don't have to use it, so it shouldn't be a selling point to buy or not to buy. Again, like I feel like the tech press has kind of gotten lopsided. If it's a smaller brand, then anything which isn't perfectly polished and isn't exactly the same as a popular brand is a criticism. And if there is a criticism of a product, well, then that means you shouldn't buy that product. And now we've kind of taken that sales data and the popularity of a company like Samsung or a company like Apple to mean that this is a meritocracy. They sell the best, so they are the standard by which we should judge competitors. And if there's something a little bit different about a competing product, well, then you should never buy that what is different. You should only buy the popular option. And I disagree. I feel like it's been overly manicured and manipulated by this sort of, we get this traffic. The traffic is what pays our bills. So we're going to talk more about things that give us more traffic. And then that becomes a cyclical experience. There was like a little tiff on Twitter between a popular Android blog and a small community of people who enjoy LG products. And it was funny. Like this blog wrote a kind of a hack criticism of the leak for the LG G9, how it's underwhelming and it's not going to be exciting and it already looks bad. Like LG needs to do something radical, except we all know that then they get panned for doing something different. And so some people voiced their displeasure with the tone of that article, speculating on what the G9 would look like. And the reply that you got from the popular blog was, we're going to talk crap about this product, and then we're going to show you how when we talk crap about these products, people don't read our articles about these products. And that's proof that no one's reading about these products. Like here we are, we're gonna crap on LG, and look, people don't read our LG coverage. Checkmate, LG fans. So yeah, I feel like, again, from a group of people who can't figure out how quad DACs or air gestures work, maybe I don't need to rely on them for my LG coverage. Yeah, I feel like the consumer experience is getting a bit rough when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, it makes me want to just like pop out my G8 and start doing some air gestures right now, just because it's not hard and I don't use them that often, but they're really easy to use. A couple people know in the live chat know who I'm talking about. I'd also recommend reading my article on how tech blogs get audio reviewing wrong, because it was that tech blog that inspired my article on it. From Matt Tyler, I want my next phone to be LG, but they didn't release that last lot here, so I'm scared. Matt Tyler's in the UK. Again, I mean, like, we want to talk. I'm a broken record player on this, but a lot of the times these less popular brands, the products are fine. It's the advertising, it's the marketing, it's the distribution. You know, Sony doesn't have the same leverage to distribute products globally and with carrier branding as, you know, Samsung or Apple can. So it's harder to get your hands on one to check it out to see if it's something that you might want to use. It's safer to just walk into your carrier store and have someone who doesn't know much about tech just say, oh, everyone's buying an iPhone, you should too. And then you're fine. I guess you can spend more for basic level computing. You know, you're not really getting the right fit phone for you. You're just sort of getting whatever's safest for them to sell. And that's the bummer. Like, LG could really stand to improve their advertising and consumer outreach. Like, I look at what OnePlus is doing, building forums and communities and hosting regular topics and conversations and a lot of outreach, a ton of outreach. LG still outsells OnePlus, but LG's not doing any of that outside of South Korea. If you get a South Korean phone, they have their little help app, and there's a pretty active forum in Korean. I don't speak that language, so it's kind of a bummer. Excuse me. From Snoozy J Mall, you're actually behind. So Snoozy J says LG software support is also kind of ass. That's actually not been the case over the last 2 years. LG's operating system updates still lag. Like, it takes a long time for them to push out an operating system update, and especially if you're in North America, because even when LG pushes the update, it takes carriers forever to finish off those updates and actually get them out to consumers. But LG's actual software support has been surprisingly good over the last 2 years. Like, the maintenance updates, the camera improvements, even some of like the audio tech improvements, some of the recording stability. The UI is still old-fashioned, but if you have an LG G8X, you see what their new UI is going to be. Android 10 is on the G8 and the V50 in Korea. So that's already a part of their beta rollout. You can get Android 10 for the Sprint V50 now if you know how to flash a ROM. Their beta launched, but Sprint's not pushing that very aggressively. Again, even when LG's ahead of their timelines on this stuff, it's going to get slowed way down by carriers and middlemen. So it's a bummer because you don't actually get to experience what LG can really do. And they've got that general perception of where they were from like the G5 and V20 days, where I went like a whole year on my V20 without any updates from LG. That's not the case anymore. But to know that, you'd actually have to follow up on LG and report on them more than just the week before their phone launches on embargo week and then put their phone in a drawer and never touch it ever again. I mean, for all of the manufacturers out there, let's not forget that LG was the first to market with software stabilized 4K video at 60 frames per second across all 3 camera sensors. They beat Apple. Samsung can't do it. The LGs are really good. Oh, it's sad. Matt Tyler, let's not talk about updates. I'm on a P30 Pro on Android 9 and my wife's P20 just got Android 10. Oof. Again, this is a major problem for Android that we will have to save for a future podcast. So these are the early announcements that I thought were exciting. Health tech, wearable tech, in improving the consumer personal area network of gadgets. Obviously, CES isn't going to be a huge show for the actual phones and computers. But I'm also hoping to see, as the week goes on, some more iteration on auto tech. It's something that I don't have much of a beat on. We don't cover a lot at Newegg, but I'm going to be very curious to see what kind of car enhancements, self-driving enhancements, electric car, electric vehicle things, but then also better incorporation of our data and services to make driving a safer activity. Every year we get little tantalizing teases of what could be coming down the pipe 5 years, 10 years in the future. And CES becomes one of those shows where we can show off things better, like heads-up displays for drivers and better turn-by-turn navigation. And a Garmin can still be relevant in this industry because automobile manufacturers have sort of given up their responsibility to improving cars. I'm still consistently shocked at what kind of stuff gets built into a Tesla and how exceedingly rare it is to see some of the security and driver enhancements in other premium automobiles. So that's the gig. I'm actually not going to be going to CES this year. After 12 years of going to the show floor, I'm taking a break. I'm going to be working with the Newegg team to help produce the content that's coming out of CES this year. Trisha's going to be on the show floor. She's going to be running around. But for me, I'm really looking forward to some of the later trade shows. I'm going to be going out to Computex again, and that's going to be a big travel date for me. So a number of my friends, LFA is out there, GameSki is out there, Board at Work obviously is out there. A lot of my favorite work friends, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to see them this year. But I'm going to take a little time. I did not get much rest over the holidays, and I'm going to kind of reset, unplug. I'm really happy I'm not going to have to force this voice through numerous videos on the show floor in Vegas desert dry air. California dry air is already doing a number on my ability to talk for longer periods of time. But we're going to have a lot to talk about, especially following up the show launch tomorrow. So if you want, tune in to All About Android tomorrow. I think they typically go live around 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to be joining them to talk about CES announcements and accessories and mobile tech. And then we're going to be working with Newegg to get Trisha's videos out the door as efficiently as we can. So Newegg's channel is going to have some cool content to show off what's going on in Vegas. And then I think we'll have a little bit to recap next week on this podcast. Just what we saw at CES this year, what could potentially be exciting. I'm sure we're still going to get some 5G announcements, some more gaming announcements. AMD's going to have a presence. Apple's going to be talking about privacy and security. There's going to be a lot to cover. The show's not going to have the one big exciting reveal, but like CES's years past, it's a broad consumer conversation that I still think is really interesting and can still be a lot of fun, even if we don't have that one big highlight piece that dominates the show. So, folks, thank you so much for joining, for conversing. This every week. I'm so grateful and appreciative of the phenomenal live chat, everyone that's been jumping in, Cray102, Boeing Bike, Goran Petrovic, Matt Tyler, Soulless Geek, lots and lots of other, Fat Produce, Natakoon, Kyle Ruggles, I'm missing other names, Q3 Becker, Gary the Fireman. It's like the best episode of Romper Room every week. And I'm just always so grateful for you joining these conversations, sharing these conversations, and bringing other people into some of the longer conversations that we need to have about tech and science, tech and politics, and a lot more into this next year, into this new year, the magical year of 2020, tech and health. I want to make that a major part of this conversation, and I feel most qualified to talk about hearing health. So hashtag 2020 hearing. I'm already shooting and cutting and writing and interviewing to start bringing hearing health more to the forefront of my personal tech channel. So hopefully you'll join me for that too, because I feel we need to be treating our ears with a little bit more respect like we treat our eyes. Did I say that right? And we need to treat our ears more like we treat our eyes. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. So, folks, that's going to do it. One last big thanks. I appreciate all of the help, the support, the conversation, and you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, on the YouTubes, on the Twitch, on the Twitters, on the Facebooks and the Instagrams. And of course, you can catch all of the links that we've talked about, all of the show notes on SomeGadgetGuy.com. That's where you can also find more links on how to support production on this channel, and where you can find my lists of things like in-depth camera reviews and audio reviews for smartphones. If you want to dig deep, that's the best place to find everything that's going on in the world of Gadget Guy. So thanks so much for watching. Please get out there, support the Reddit, the subreddit, Glowing Rectangles on reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, and help promote other content creators who need more attention, who need more views and more visibility. I will catch you all next week on another Monday morning tech chat show. I want you to have an awesome week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I'll catch you back here for another rambling, long diatribe of a live chat. Be well. I love you all. Take care.